A focused fool can accomplish more than a distracted genius. A focused fool can accomplish more than a distracted genius. I don't know if you've heard of the law, Pareto's law, but if you haven't heard of it as Pareto's law, you, I'm sure, have heard of it as the 80-20 rule. The 80-20 rule. What's the 80-20 rule? It dictates that 20%, just 20% of your effort generates 80% of your results. This can change your life. But here's the problem with most people. What you're saying then, Gary, is 20% of all the efforts that I put in my life overall gets me 80% of my results. So if that is true, that means we're peeing away 80% of our time getting a lot less results when the 20% is what we're focusing on. But here's the challenge. Most people have no idea specifically what that 20% is. Now, let me give you a quick idea of how this would work in just a relationship as an example. Then we're going to talk about how we can use this in your sales and in business. Let's say that you're with a spouse and, or your partner or whatever, and their love language is love, right? So let's say their love language is touch. So you've got, acts of service is a love language, gifts is a love language. So acts of service is like, vacuum cleaning and whatnot. But here's the thing. If your love language is acts of service, you might think that the person that you're with, their love language is acts of service if you don't really know. So what you're doing, you're giving them acts of service and it's not getting the results that you want, but their love language is touch. And if you just focused on the 20% of all the efforts that you're putting in on touch, you'd probably have to quit vacuuming around in the house and they would get 80% of that 20% and feel more loved. That's crazy. So if you know these things, you can do 20% less work. So 20% gets you 80% of the return. Now watch this. What if you knew what your 20% was and you wanted to double your results? You could take that 20% and add another 20%. Now 40% is going to get you even more results. Give me a wave if that makes sense to everybody. Does that make sense? That's huge. So my next question to you is, in your business, what is the 20% of the efforts you're putting in that's getting you 80% of the results? So what are the different efforts that you put in of the 100%? You got cold calling. You've got asking for referrals or getting introductions. There's all these different things. So what I want you to do when we're done today, if you have time or while you're going out throughout your day, try to identify specifically what the 20% is. See, when I go into a company, if I do an analysis on a company, this is one of the first things I'm going to do. I'm going to do these with the CEOs and the owners, and I'm going to figure out what are they doing to get 20% effort on 80% results. Then I'm going to look at what the products and services that they're selling, because sometimes there may be some products and services that you probably are wasting time selling. I'm not saying that in your particular situation. So find out today, know for a fact what the 20% efforts that you're putting in gets you 80% results. Why would you want to know that? Well, that just tells me there's 80% of efforts that I'm putting in that really are semi-worthless. So why am I putting all my energy here when I could take this effort, bring it down here, and get 80% more return on results? All right? So that's one. In fact, for the managers that may be here today, I would find out what yours are and then have a chat with some of your sales team and figure out, hey, what do you think? And the only way to know this, you have to have a track record. So you may not know it right away. You may have to figure out, okay, let's look at my last 20 sales. How did I get those sales? Was it an up? Was it a referral? Was it a repeat? Figure those things out. So if you're serious about your sales and you want to put in less effort to make more money, this is where the game's at. And then once you figure that out, you just take the 20% and let's double up on it, and you can double your sales with a lot less effort. Everybody with me on that? So play with that. Now, the next thing that you want to do is we want to talk about, as I shared with you earlier, a focused fool can accomplish more than a distracted genius. This is a very big week for everybody, right? End of the year week, you can make some really, really serious sales this week. What are some of your distractions? We talked about this earlier. What might be some of the distractions that you can list that keeps you from focusing on your 20%? What could some of them be? Anybody have any ideas? I'll give you one. Probably the biggest distraction is your phone, social media. Now tell me I'm not the only one. You ever gone on your phone and you're looking to look something up, and then before you know it, you're down a rabbit hole that you did not even expect, and you don't even remember what you went on the phone to look for. Anybody else done that? Please tell me it's not just me, right? So that phone is very, very distracting. What's the next thing? Anything else? Somebody said something. Tell me.
Family.
Family, right? So somebody say family?
Yeah.
All right. So we're gonna put problems as something negative in the family. Problems. All right. Whoops. Problems.
They're not.
And if they're not problems, but even still. So here's another one. You've got to learn to use the N-word more. What? Yeah. You got to use the N-word more. No. You've got to learn to say no. One thing I've seen I'm very blessed to have, I have about 4 friends who are billionaires. And I shared with you earlier when I was with you that one of my mentors that I had that I was very blessed was a billionaire. And one thing they all have in common is the ability to say no, so they cut down their distraction. And a lot of times you'll have somebody, you ever get some of those people, it could be even a friend, they just don't know how to shut up. You've got to learn to shut them down. You can do it in a kind way. So if you have a problem saying no to people, you've got to learn to step up. And what happens is, like for somebody like myself, I'm just checking on my time here. Somebody like myself, I'm bombarded all the time. Gary, you want to join this group? You want to do this? You want to partner with me on this? You want to invest in this? I have learned to say no, 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 and I'm not overly concerned about hurting other people's feelings. I care about people's feelings, but I'm not overly concerned about what other people think about me. I am concerned to some degree, but I'm not overly concerned when I know that when I say this no, it focuses me on my 20%. And if somebody has a problem with that, I'm okay with that. If they're not, that's okay too. Any questions on this? Any thoughts on this?
Yeah, why do you, I've got a question on it. Why do you think that we end up, like, I think everybody in the room knows there's times like that 20% are more effective.
Yeah.
I know I feel that way.
Yeah.
But why do you think we end up staying and focusing on that 80%?
Because in our minds, we think it's easier. And also, we talk about value, the level of importance you place on something. If you had a higher value on time and money, or even success, whatever your definition of success is. I see this in the gym. Let me give you an example of your question, even in the gym. Guys, a lot of the guys in the gym, it's called ego lifting, right? If anybody's into working out, you know what ego lifting is. Ego lifting is, you'll see a guy, he'll like you'll see him sitting on the squat machine, and he'll put plate after plate on there, like each plate is 45 pounds, and there's another 45 pounds. So in this particular reason, the reason they stay on the 80% is it's an ego problem, okay? They value their ego more than the results of working less, putting the 20% in and getting bigger legs. So what do? Instead of squatting properly, what they do is they don't go all the way down. A correct squat would mean half the amount of weight. You could use half the amount of weight, but that doesn't appeal to the ego. Half the amount of weight, go all the way down to parallel or below, then go up. But you see these guys with the egos, they're putting all the weights out and they're going halfway. They think they're doing well, but they're not. So it could be ego. A lot of times many of you may not be serious enough about your success, so you don't want to take the time later on the day and figure out, okay, you know what? I'm going to go through my last 20 people. Let me see how I got them. I'm going to make a column. I got person A, B, C, D, whatever. Go through 20 of them. Okay, here's a column. I got this person through this. I got this person through this, and see what it is. And if you're serious about valuing your time, making more money and more success, you'll do these things. Now, here's what's interesting. If you were to ever spend a lot of time with me, you will realize that I have a lot more time on my hand that I don't let people know about because I focus on this all of the time. I'll give you something simple that I do, and I know it sounds silly, but it's how I keep myself programmed. If I have to go into the kitchen, because I'm in my home office, if I have to go into the kitchen and get some water, I make sure that there's something else I might have to take with me to go in the kitchen so I don't have to do it twice. It sounds simple, but it's 20% of the effort gives me 80% of the results. That's the reason. So master these three things, and this will focus and force you. If time is important for you, I mean, you really value your time, you're going to be able to learn to say no quicker. You're going to be able to go ahead and focus more on your 20% to get 80% more of your results because you want to work smarter, not harder. Does that help answer that, Josh?
Yeah, it does.
Any other thoughts on this or any other questions? What do we have? A couple more minutes? Yeah, we only have about 3 more minutes. Get everybody on the road and rock and roll.
I got a question.
Yes, sir.
So do you try to usually like also divide the rest of the 80% into 20% as well, and just make it seem like you're always at 80, but each what you're doing is value at 20%, so you can get 80% out of it?
Oh yeah, so what the 80%, so yes, this is the efforts. All this is 100% effort, right? So this is the 20% of the effort. So what I try to do, I try to figure out what the 80% is that's only getting me 20%. So I don't want to spend 80% of my time only getting 20%. You with me? So then what I'm going to do is I want to take this 80% of activity and I want to increase it and make it 40% or 60% and so on. And then when you do that, you are a machine. So if you can learn to eliminate a lot of distractions in your life, like I only have like 4 major buckets that I do in my life. You know, one is work, one is aviation, one are friends and family or things like that. And then the other stuff I've learned over the years to just eliminate. Now, I'd love to have a lot more hobbies. I mean, I love radio control airplanes and radio control helicopters, but that's not part of my 20% here. So I just say no to it, even though I like it and enjoy it because I focus on this more. Does that help answer that question for you?
Yes.
And this is why it's so important in your relationship, in your health, in your sales. Figure out what your 20% is. Because that's where the money's at. That's where the love is at. That's where the happiness is at. And that's where the results are at. And then once you know specifically what they are, let's go ahead and start putting more of that into it. So now we can take the 20 into 40. And before you know it, you're just a smooth machine. And you're really, really getting a ton of results with a lot less effort. Josh, I think we're up on time, boss.
Yeah, listen, thank you so much for joining us this morning again, Gary.
Okay, I wish you guys a great, amazing week. Josh, I'll stay in touch with you at the end of the week, see how the numbers are going. All right, everybody, crush it today. Have a blessed day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.